of the divisio of speeches, I now note that for Quintilian, it is division and composition which are important factors in memorizing what we have written. Almost uniquely important factors, apart from practice, in helping to retain what we compose mentally. It makes sense that the general outlines of arguments are easier to remember if the speech is clearly structured. Though this might lead one to think that more speeches would follow the 4-part or 6-part division discussed earlier. We saw that many do not. But perhaps Isaiah's habit of breaking down of his narratives into smaller sections was designed to aid his clients in memorizing the complexities of their cases, as well as of the jurors of remembering them. As for composition and style, Quintilian observes that as it is easier to learn verse by heart than prose, so it is easier to learn rhythmical prose than non-rhythmical. What does that mean, you ask? For Aristotle too, delivery has to have rhythm, with the important proviso that prose must be rhythmical but not metrical, otherwise it will be a poem. He interestingly notes the importance of iambic rhythm, you know, the meter of tragedy, since the iambic is the language of the many, wherefore of all meters it is most used in common speech. But his focus is on the paean, with a long, short, 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 or short, 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 long. I may have added an extra short there. His focus is on the paean, with an interesting comment on early punctuation, but the period should be broken off by a long syllable, and the end should be clearly marked, not by the scribe nor by a punctuation mark, but by the rhythm itself. This is an interesting comment because I didn't think they had punctuation marks at this point, but clearly they did. The topic was taken up at greater length by Dionysius in his On Literary Composition, where he analyzes the opening of the De Corona. And this goes, here we go, Bacchius, Spondi, Anapi, Spondi, 3 critics, Spondi, Hyperbacchius, Bacchius, or if you like a dactyl, critic, 2 paeans, Molossus or a Bacchius, for it can be scanned either way, Spondi, 2 Hyperbacchii, critic, Spondi, then again another Bacchius or a critic, catalectic. It is interesting that Dionysius himself is not sure how to scan all of the feet. So when you're doing your verse composition and people are telling you off for it not scanning, remember this. And it indicates one of the difficulties of the task facing anyone who wishes to do this for prose rather than verse. Also, that Aristotle's theoretical insistence on the importance of the paean is not borne out by Demosthenes' actual practice, at least here. Indeed, according to Blas's law, Demosthenes tends to avoid a sequence of more than 2 short syllables. The paean has 3. None of the feet is an iambus, the one that Aristotle says is the language of the many. Stephen Usher noted in the introduction to his Demosthenes the still very controversial nature of the discussion of prose rhythm. His analysis of the final sentence of the On the Crown brings out the preponderance of long syllables. I tried, because I had nothing better to do, to scan the opening clauses of Antiphon 1, 5 and 6, Andocides 1 and 2, Lysias 1 and 12, the opening words of Demosthenes' famous Elatea narrative, and Marathon Oath passages in the De Corona. And I can see, and I wouldn't claim to be an expert scansion person, and you can't do this properly on a slide, I can see only one possible paean if you ignore hiatus at Lysias 12, which is otherwise very spondaic. You get that, you get uk, arxas, thai, moi, doke, aporon, einai. Because doke, aporon has got the vowels together, so there's a bit of leeway here. Given the complexity of rhythm, I'm not sure how far rhythm would have been a help in committing long speeches to memory, but then I'm not an ancient Greek. I do not think, however, there is any doubt that the expectation of a man speaking in public was that he should deliver an oral, not a written presentation. But I do still wonder if the expectation was always fully met. Take, for instance, the case of the Mytilenean Euxithius in Antiphon 5 on the murder of Herodes. He is clearly a relatively young man, but the proem to this speech is very carefully constructed in an intricate, grand style. He begins with the topos of inexperience, couched antithetically, I wish, but, and chiastically. The argument is in the form of the Greek letter chi, as you can see. As commentators, like me and Gagarin, have observed, Antiphon's artistry here belies Euxithius' claim to inexperience. But I also wonder if Euxithius really could have learned by heart the long speech that comes down to us as Antiphon 5, 96 sections in this one. He complains that he had been imprisoned before the trial. One wonders how he can have consulted Antiphon and learned the speech under those circumstances. There was then the frightening prospect for a Mytilenean facing an Athenian court, because Mytilene had only a few years previously revolted from Athens. It also had a funny accent to the Athenians, because it's Aeolic Lesbos where he comes from, not Attic. And we remember the fragment of Euripides concerning the fear that stuns a man on trial for homicide. I doubt that Euxithius was the only litigant who feared for his future. And even professional speakers, like Demosthenes on the embassy to Philip, and Cicero at the trial of Milo, allegedly did not give of their best on stressful occasions. Demosthenes dried up. Cicero had the runs. Should we then distinguish amateur speakers from professional rhetors? Could it be, as John Muir suggests in his edition of Alcidamus, that some litigants at least had some form of written notes with them, whatever that means in the ancient world? Plato's criticism of writing in the Phaedrus has perhaps obscured the reality of the courtroom situation for many litigants. The alternative, for those who believe in strictly oral delivery from memory, must be, I think, that our texts often bear little resemblance to what was actually said on the day. And finally, delivery, actio, pronuntatio. As you know, the ancient Greek for delivery, hypocrisis, is connected with the word for an actor, Hippocrates, the English word hypocrite. Having discovered, ordered, composed, and remembered what you have to say, you have to deliver your speech effectively. Demosthenes supposedly rated delivery as the most important aspect of oratory. This story here is usually erroneously abbreviated into him answering delivery, 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 like Blair's education, education, education. The importance of delivery was also recognized by Aristotle, but no handbook had yet been written. And for Aristotle, quote, delivery seems a vulgar matter when rightly understood. I've never understood what he means, actually. Theophrastus may have attempted to address this prejudice, but as John Hall notes in his essay on oratorical delivery and the emotions in the Blackwell Companion to Roman Rhetoric, the prejudice persisted, with only, with only 9 sections on delivery in the Ad Herennium, despite the introductory remark, because no one has written carefully on this subject, and only 14 sections in Cicero's De Oratory. It was left to Quintilian to produce our most extensive treatment of the topic at Book 11.3, 1 to 184. Quintilian does not do things by halves, and he offers a detailed examination of voice and gesture, even to the extent of how you use your eyebrows. For those of you who are old enough, like Roger Moore, the way he acts by using the eyebrows. Similarly, in modern times, the performance of oratory has only more recently become a popular topic. I've even written about it myself. Since my water clock is running low, I shall confine myself to 2 brief examples. In his discussion of figures of thought in Book 9, Quintilian notes the importance of in delivery of prosopopoeia and apostrophe. Prosopopoeia, you recall, was when a speaker acted the role of another, usually a dead person. This is the most famous one. Cicero, who received training in acting as a youth, was in his element in the Pro Caelio, conjuring up Appius Claudius Caecus, who because of his blindness, Caecus meaning blind, thankfully cannot see the lustful activities of Claudia. Let me therefore summon up a member of her own family, and who better than the famous Caecus? He at any rate will be the least shocked at her, since he will not be able to see her. And it goes on and on and on. Did I destroy the peace treaty with Pyrrhus so that you could strike the most disgraceful sexual bargains on a daily basis? Did I bring water to the city for you to foul with your incestuous practices? Did I build a road so that you could parade up and down it in the company of other women's husbands? Thank you, Dominic. Note the 3 again, the questions. Typical Cicero. If Cicero was acting the part, as Quintilian suggests, and I'm sure he must have been, it must also have been a virtuoso performance which will have exhausted him.